Carol, should I send it back to you or Bridget?
Carol, please.
Done, thank you.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Doing well,
I'm as
thank
good.
you.
I'm as good as I look.
There you go. Me too. Who's our clerk tonight? Carol, is it you? I think we have everybody, all of our commissioners are present.
Yes, Chairman, you are correct. I will be clerking and you do have all members present.
So we'll be able to start on time. It's just a matter of whether we have our technical side ready to go. Is that correct?
Mariah, are we good?
Not quite yet, just a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yes, we are live on both YouTube and UGTV, and I'm ready to go.
Great, thank you all. We will convene our Public Works and Safety Standing Committee meeting for Monday, September 27. I am Commissioner Melissa Bynum. Before I call the meeting to order, I will announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely, as well as some on site. All participants should mute speakers when not speaking to avoid background noise. And during our meeting, make sure you announce yourself by name and title when you speak so the public knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants, and it's also current guidance from our Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments are included in our record of the meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting our clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday prior to the meeting. The public will also have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by phone or Zoom from the lobby of our municipal office building. I will now call the meeting of Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order. Thank you to Commissioner Brian McKiernan for joining us this evening as Commissioner Markley is absent. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call, Groneman,
Here.
Philbrook,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Ramirez,
Here.
McKiernan,
Here.
and as stated by Chairman Bynum, Commissioner McKiernan is filling in this evening for Commissioner Markley, who was unable to be present with us this evening, and Commissioner/Chairman Bynum.
Here. We do not have revisions to our agenda tonight, and we also do not have any minutes to approve. So that does take us to our committee agenda. I will pause briefly. There is some background noise somewhere. I cannot identify where it is from. So I would just ask all to mute unless you are speaking, please. Our committee agenda includes item 1, a Bishop Ward SRO. This is the first of 3 items on our agenda tonight, and it's an agreement with Bishop Ward High School to provide a school resource officer. And Casey Meyer from our legal department is here. Miss Meyer, if you want to take this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Casey Meyer from the legal department. This agreement is identical to the 2 other SRO agreements, which were approved by full commission earlier this month. It's an agreement which provides for, the provision of 1 school resource officer to Bishop Ward High School from the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. The term is for 10 years. And we have a graduated reimbursement schedule included in the agreement, which would include a $30,000 reimbursement back to the unified government for school year 2021 through 2022. The next year from 2022 to 2023 is $33,000. The next year from 2023 to 2024 is $36,000. And then for the school years 2024 through the term of the agreement will be based off of the officer's base salary plus the cost of living increases, which will be equal to the FOP4 memorandum of understanding. So that is identical to both the other SRO agreements between Piper and Turner.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee?
Commissioner Mike Kane, some of the brightest minds graduated from that school. Move for approval.
Oh, and Madam
Second,
Clerk,
Ramirez.
and I have a second from Commissioner Ramirez. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, were there any comments from the public?
No comments were received.
And is there anyone online that you can see that wants to make a comment?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. We do have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Groneman,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you very much. That motion carries. The second item is a resolution declaring CSO 19 sewer separation phase 1 to be a valid improvement and authorizing a survey of land for that project. And we have Mr. James Bain also here with our legal department. Mr. Bain.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good evening. This resolution is the first step in the property acquisition process for public works projects. When the commission deems them the project necessary, we can get a survey and find out what property needs to be acquired and begin that process. This project is a sewer separation south of Big 11 Lake, also Big 11 Lake enhancements, including some stormwater storage. Chris Finger from Water Pollution Control, I think, has a map to share and explain more about the project.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Finger. I'm with Water Pollution Control Engineering, as James mentioned. I'm a project engineer with them. I am just going to show you quickly here. So this is the basic outline of the area that we're looking to do this initial project in. As James mentioned, we're looking to do sewer separation as a base project for our consent decree to test out some methods that we are looking to try for this and future projects. This will include using Big 11 Lake for some stormwater detention during peak flow events. When we receive rain, we'll bypass some of the stormwater flow to Big 11 Lake instead of sending it directly into the sewer first. And ultimately, it'll slowly discharge back into the system after the rain is complete. Is there any questions for me?
Are there questions for Mr. Finger.
So, Mr. Finger, at the risk of sounding ignorant, which is not a problem for me, I can do that. Explain to the public why you want to separate this out, what the problem is.
Okay, so this area around Big 11 Lake is part of our combined sewer service area. So both stormwater and sanitary sewer have to share the same pipe during storm events. When this happens, our pipes get overwhelmed with the amount of flow coming into them from the rainfall, thus causing us to have discharges potentially at different places around the combined sewer system into ponds, creeks, things of that nature. This ultimately will look to capture some of that stormwater upstream of those discharges, preventing them before sending it back into the system to get down to the treatment plant to be treated.
So did I hear you say that water would be diverted to Big 11 Lake?
Stormwater. The stormwater.
Stormwater.
Yes. We'll be installing separate storm sewer system that would get the water to Big 11 for storage before getting discharged from Big 11 into the combined sewer system.
So, so with more water going into there, will it help keep the lake in better condition? So it doesn't get the buildup of the anaerobic bacteria that makes everything turn green and all that jazz.
It should help turn that over. We will be evaluating that as part of the design process to ensure that everything stays living throughout that turnover of the water and environment of that pond during wet weather events.
Great. So if there's,
and we're adding
might be happier. So if there's fish in there, they might be happier.
Yes, they'll be much happier.
Okay, I just wanted some clarification for the public. Thank you so much.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. Mr. Finger, on the resolution, it says that it is found and determined necessary that certain lands be condemned for public use, providing the land necessary for the improvements that you've described. Give me an idea about the lands that could potentially be condemned for public use and the eminent domain procedure used.
Well, that James would back me up here, but that's just the basic language, I believe, that's in all of our resolutions of survey. I don't think at this point we're looking to go outside of public right-of-way or land that we own for any nature of doing these improvements at this time. There's no planned improvements outside of anything we own. It's just part of the general verbiage that's put into that resolution.
But if there were eventually determined that land outside of the public right-of-way needed to be obtained for the purpose of the combined sewer separation, this resolution would pre-authorize eminent domain. Is that correct?
Well,
or sorry,
Commissioner James Bain, Unified Government Legal Department. So we would, if we needed to file a court action, we would have to come back before the commission again. This authorizes authorizes the survey, so we know what we're getting into. Once we have, we do our own appraisals of property. We make offers to purchase property from residents or businesses. And once all those efforts fail is when we come back to the commission and ask for permission to file a court action.
And James, if I'm not correct me, but that's through a ordinance, I believe. Is that correct? That gives us the right to do that condemnation proceeding?
Well, state statute outlines the number of days and the coming back to the commission twice prior to filing that court action. Yes.
So you're authorizing us just mostly to get out there and survey and try and plan the project out. You will have another chance to review anything if we were to have to go to condemnation, basically.
Okay, you just clarified two very important things for me. First of all, that we're authorizing the survey that is the basis for the later improvements, and that at the moment, all of the planned separation improvements are directed to the existing public right-of-way. Is that correct?
Or publicly owned lands, yes.
Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Ramirez, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Bynum. My comments will be very, very briefly because, and thank you, Commissioner McKiernan, for your questions. I had the exact same thoughts and wanted to make sure that the community out there knew, because, eminent domain's the big dirty word in of what we do. And so I just wanted to make sure that the community knew that we're not coming for your property unless it's the last thing that's needed. We will do our job within what the boundaries of our public land and public right of ways. So thank you, Commissioner McKiernan, for those. I had the exact same questions and thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner. A comment for either James Spain or Mr. Finger. I noticed the packet contemplates the permanent closure of the road waterway directly to the east of the lake. Do we need to have more conversation about that right at the moment, or is that a final decision? I do understand it, but I think that's another thing of interest.
So if I could address that real fast, we do plan on having some public meetings as part of our outreach through the design process. So we'll be getting public input. And if the public input and design mesh and it works out that we take that, then we will utilize that space. But otherwise, our design will go some other direction.
Okay. Thank you very much. Other questions or comments from anyone? Any comments from the public?
No comments were received.
And do you see anyone present that would like to speak?
There are no hands up in the attendees list.
Thank you very much. We have heard the presentation. Is there a motion?
Move to approve as submitted, Ramirez.
Second, Philbrook.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the item. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Groneman,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you very much. That motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Item number 3 is an update on the Cordico application used by our public safety departments. I think I saw Sheriff Ash. I don't know. Sheriff, I know you're here.
No.
I think I see a Kay Heron possibly with the police department. Hello. And I do not see fire represented. They might be here and I just haven't located them yet, but nonetheless.
Madam Chair, I just spoke with Chief Callahan. There was a mix up in their schedule. So they may not be joining us this evening.
Okay.
But Sheriff Ash and Heron are both here for the sheriff and for the police department.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sheriff, would you like to start off this conversation presentation?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd be happy to. Welcome everyone this evening. Good to see you all. This has been initiative that we've been interested in for a long time, and it is finally coming to fruition. We have all of the appropriate contracts and everything in place, and we've gotten our people trained, our point lead people, and we have been busy about educating our entire workforce about the app. The Cortico Wellness App is really state-of-the-art technology that puts the ability to have resources literally in the palm of your hand with your smartphone. So the app is available to all current employees, sworn and civilian, in the sheriff's office, and also to their spouses, significant others, their family members, as well as all of our retirees, some of who still deal with some post-traumatic stress issues from time to time. So at the present time, we rolled it out maybe about 3 weeks ago now or so. And it took us a couple of weeks to get around to every shift and every unit and section in the agency to educate and inform people and then assist them in downloading the app. And we have, as of this afternoon, there have been 81 downloads, and they have been accessed just almost 400 times. So obviously, people are accessing the app multiple times. The feedback has been very positive. Feedback coming to our leadership team that's worked on this, as well as we drew in all of our peer support team members to get them edified and educated so that they then would be able to help us enlist and help people download the app. The comments have been very positive, and the only criticism, if you will, or suggestion, really wasn't a criticism, really a suggestion that a couple of folks noted that there was not much about financial literacy on the app. And so I think that's a good thing that people are asking about that and wanting that, because certainly people's personal finances contributes to just some of your day in and day out stress. So we have worked to correct that issue, and we've created a folder on the Sheriff's Office Y Drive where all of our employees have access to that, and they can go and they can access other resources. So we are going to, I am going to author a letter. We're going to put together a letter that we're going to mail out to each employee's home address so that it can make the information. It's kind of like your kids in school. You're not sure the information from the teacher gets home to you as a parent. So we've got the same issue, we think, with some of our employees. We want to make sure that information is getting home to significant others and children and so forth. So we're going to do that. We're going to follow up with some other internal email announcements and making the app available, with simple links so that people can get to it and download it. But so far, for no further in than we think we're tracking along in really good shape. And people are reporting to our peer support team and our leadership team that they have found the resources to be great and very helpful.
That's excellent. And Police Representative Kay Herron, I hesitate to call you by your rank because I don't know your rank and I want to be respectful. So please tell us your name and rank.
That's okay, ma'am. I am Kelly Herron. I'm the Assistant Chief in the Chief's office. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Just to touch with Sheriff Ash, I think there's been good collaboration between us, the Sheriff's Department and Fire Department, and they've all been talking about the rollout with all three of us. And it's pretty consistent with what the Sheriff talked about with the rollout. And I know it was important for us, I think when we were talking about the rollout, to educate the officers' families, and along the same lines, we're sending out letters to all the officers' homes so that the families can read what it's about, the education piece, so that we educate that, hey, it doesn't just for work, it's also for at home. And the letter will include download instructions. And then Chief Oakman has also emailed the department as a whole in support of the app and about officers' mental health. So we've hit roll calls and posters and material to get this item out. So a lot of it's just a repeat of what the sheriff's talked about. We're doing the same thing, and I'm pretty sure if fire was here, they would be saying the same thing, because the three organizations have worked close together in this rollout. So I don't really have anything else to add other than what the sheriff talked about, and then those bullet points.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Questions from our committee members? Sounds like a wonderful program. I don't see any questions.
I have a real quick question. Sorry, this is Commissioner Philbrook. So this app is strictly for our law enforcement and our fire. Is that correct?
Families of law enforcement, they can use it.
And fire. Okay, the families of and the, okay, great. All right. Okie dokie, because I was thinking maybe I'm in a high stress job. Maybe I could use some help. So anyway, if nobody else wants to speak to it, I move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kane, did you have a comment?
Just, it's a long time coming. We appreciate what you guys do day in and day out, every day, all day, and all night for that matter. But it is something that was much needed, and I'm glad we got it going. And thank you very much.
So much. Yep, that is an appreciated comment. This is not a voting item. Oh, Mr. Howes, Alan Howes, Deputy Administrator, go right ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to follow up on Commissioner Philbrook's question, and for those listening, there is an employee assistance program that is available through the UG health benefits that is available to all employees, regardless of which area of the UG they work in, and that is specifically designed to provide confidential and support for people who are under stress or have for any number of different reasons. And that's something that is available to all employees. As you heard tonight, Cortico is really geared towards the specific needs of law enforcement and public safety and the specific stresses that they're under. But we do recognize, and particularly in the age of the last 18 months with COVID, the significant stress that this is placed on employees across the organization, and want to make sure that their folks who are listening know that support is there for through the employee assistance program for all employees.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
So,
yes.
Wait a minute. So access to that is how we get on which website or which part to access that? Do we go to Wellness Clinic? Where do we go?
Commissioner, this is Ramirez, Director of Human Resources. As part of the Employee Assistance Program, it is with New Directions Behavioral Health. And I do want to clarify, it is through, we have cards, we have posters all over the UG. So, and we do have a special code that employees would have to use to access certain benefits through there. I do want to make one point of clarification with the Employee Assistance Program. That program is available to all employees and those members that are in their household. So they don't actually have to be on our health plan to be able to access the benefits of the Employee Assistance Program. And each employee has up to 8 sessions that they per cause that they can contact the Employee Assistance Program. And I do want to make sure that it's very clear that any employee who is contacting the Employee Assistance Program on a voluntary basis, it is confidential, and they do not report back to the unified government that the employee has contacted the EAP.
Thank you very much. That is also very helpful information, and it's always a good time to remind our employees that help is available. That is the last item on our agenda for Public Works and Safety, so that will conclude this meeting. We appreciate all of you who have attended, and as always, we thank BPU Board Member Tom Groneman for being so faithful. And as we prepare for Administration and Human Services, I will note that I will also be chairing that meeting in place of Commissioner Markley. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. And we will transition over to Administration and Human Services. Again, my name is Commissioner Melissa Bynum. This will be Administration and Human Services Standing Committee for Monday, September 27, 2021. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and our public are attending remotely by Zoom, as well as some on site. All participants joining by phone should mute and when you are not speaking to avoid background noise. And during the meeting, please make sure you announce yourself with name and title every time you speak so that the public knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants, and it is current guidance from our Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email. And those comments are included in the record of our meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting our clerk office by 5 p.m. the Thursday prior to the meeting. The public will also have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by phone or Zoom from the lobby of the municipal office building. I will now call the meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call, Philbrook,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Ramirez,
Here.
McKiernan for Commissioner Markley,
Here.
Bynum.
Here. We do have one revision to tonight's agenda. Item 2 is added. It's an amendment to the Legends West Lawn Development Agreement. Staff is requesting this item be fast-tracked to this Thursday's full commission meeting. Our first order of business is there are minutes from our May 2021 meeting. If I could have a motion for approval.
Commissioner Mike Kane, move for approval.
Commissioner Philbrook, second.
We have a motion and a second on our minutes. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye, thank you. The minutes are approved. On our committee agenda, our first item of 2 is a resolution approving the UG mitigation plan for staff related to COVID-19 and an ARPA allocation. Staff has requested that this item also be fast-tracked to this Thursday's full commission meeting. I do have Renee Ramirez, Director of our HR department. Ms. Ramirez, if you want to take the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, Commissioners. I am Renee Ramirez, the Director of Human Resources. With me this evening, I have 2 members of the HR team, Shakiba Christian, our HR manager, and Dave Wimberly, our risk manager. As you know, we are well into our second year of dealing with the COVID-19, with its variants continuing to be a serious health risk for our community and for our employees. I need to see if my presentation is not showing up here. One second here.
Sure.
Are you all able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so like I said, as you know, we're well into our second year of dealing with
Hey, Renee,
COVID-19.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at your notes. We're not looking at the actual presentation.
Sorry.
Now we're looking at your email. Yep,
There you
there
go.
we go.
Thank you.
There we go.
All righty. Sorry about that. Okay, so we are well within our second year of dealing with the COVID-19, with its variants continuing to be a serious health risk for our employees. We have taken several measures to reduce the threat that poses to our employees. So some of those things I will outline here. As stewards of the community's resources, and the UG being an employer, we have an obligation to take efforts to avoid an outbreak amongst our employees that creates a serious potential for staff shortages and increased labor costs, as well as to responsibly manage our healthcare costs, which, as you know, is a self-insurance plan for our insurance premiums, and by maintaining a healthy workplace. Some of the measures that we've actually taken and implemented in our workforce here is the social distancing in our workplace. We've had to close public-facing offices and services. We've had to permit employees to work from home. We've had mandatory mask mandates for all employees, modifying workspaces with protection barriers. We've required masks in UG vehicles and common areas. We've also provided limited COVID-19 leave for partially and fully vaccinated employees. That is one provision that was a carryover to the FFCRA, which was the federal mandate that we previously had in place when in 2020 when COVID commenced. We did start this program again September 7th of 2021. So the mitigation plan, we wanted to identify who was covered under this plan. This would be for full-time employees, part-time employees, temporary seasonal employees, temp employees that are placed at the unified government, any contractors and any volunteers that we would have here working for us at the unified government. Earlier this summer, the mask mandate was lifted for a short time, but because of the rise in cases in our community, it was reintroduced to our workforce for employee safety on August the 6th of 2021. And it currently is still in place for employees and for visitors. So the mitigation plan has outlined COVID-19 vaccinations. Vaccinations are available to employees at the Employee Wellness Center. They are available at the Wyandotte County Health Department and at any healthcare provider or pharmacy of our employees' choice. Currently, the Road to Wellness Employee Health Center does have the Pfizer vaccination that is available to all employees, and it's also available to dependents of UG employees who are on our medical plan. Vaccinations are free of charge for employees, and employees are required to upload proof of their vaccination. The Human Resources Department is the department that is maintaining those vaccination certifications, and it is being held as secured medical information being kept separately from employee personnel files. A little update on the number of employees that are currently vaccinated throughout the unified government. Out of 2,300 employees, we have approximately 1,269 employees who have currently updated their vaccination certifications for us. So in the mitigation plan, we wanted to introduce this in a phased approach. So phase one of the mitigation plan is a vaccination incentive. So October 1 through November 30th of 2021, we are wanting to provide a $400 monetary incentive to be paid to employees who have received all recommended doses of vaccine. So that would be the 2 doses of Pfizer, the 2 doses of Moderna, and the 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson. Again, employees would have to complete the online verification vaccination prior to November 30th, 2021 to be eligible for this $400 monetary incentive. The cost to incentivize for all employees, and I would be using the 2,300 number that we have here at the Unified Government employed, is about $1 million. And these funds are ARPA eligible expenses. The next phase would be, the vaccination incentive for the booster, COVID-19 booster vaccinations. As recommended by our public health officials, there's still discussion on when we will be bringing that vaccination on board here, but the dates will be announced upon guidance from the health department and Julianne and her staff. employees would be eligible for a one-time $100 monetary incentive for the booster. So this would give our employees a total of $500 between the initial, which the 2 doses, and then the $100 for the booster vaccination. The booster incentive would expire December 31st of 2022. The next phase is the potential phase, which we're calling phase 3, which is mandatory weekly testing. The projected date for this phase would start December 1 of 2021, which would be after the deadline, giving the employees an opportunity to get tested, to get vaccinated between October 1st and November 30th of 2021. The mandatory weekly testing would be for non-fully vaccinated employees, and testing schedules could be coordinated between human resources and departments. Employees would self-administer a saliva-based PCR test, and employees who fail or refuse to test would be sent home and not permitted to substitute paid leave for any period of unpaid suspended work. A refusal would be considered disciplinary pursuant to any of our applicable memorandum of understandings for collective bargaining employees and disciplinary provisions within the Human Resources Guide for those employees who are non-union employees. The cost of testing, doing the saliva-based testing for employees, is approximately $65 per test. And these expenses are also eligible for FEMA reimbursement at 100% through December 31st of 2021. I'll turn it over to Misty Brown, Chief Legal Counsel.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Misty Brown, Chief Counsel. But before I start, I see that Commissioner Kane has his hand raised.
You go ahead and finish, and then we'll come back to it, okay?
Okay, thank you. Well, this slide here is called our collective bargaining slide. So as staff has went through to work up a potential COVID mitigation plan, we have reached out to the unions and provided a copy of the proposed plan and sought some feedback from the unions. In addition, LOUs were drafted with all of the unions and sent over for consideration that set out the terms of the plan and also the potential piece for the mandatory testing. And the advantage of the LOU is that it provided some flexibility for change, and that the testing frequency could change or the type of testing could change. Right now, it's imagined that it would be, a saliva test. And then it also specifically reserved the rights of all of the unions to grieve any discipline that may be issued for noncompliance. As of now, I believe 3 of our trade unions have signed and returned the LOU to the unified government. Others have issued some support for the incentive, but they have expressed concern and are opposed to any type of mandatory testing. I believe another union were in accord with everything, but didn't believe that a LOU was actually necessary in order to do this. And so that's where we are at with our union outreach. I think this would take me to the next slide. And so our items for consideration tonight, and there are, this is quite a bit to consider actually, is that you have in front of you a resolution that would adopt a COVID mitigation plan and also approve an ARPA allocation up to $1 million to fund the incentive. But this is all done with the understanding that there could be direction from the commission that will result in amendments to the plan, such as, what does the commission wish to incentivize the vaccine? What are their thoughts on the mandatory testing? As we had this discussion with the unions, whether or not one should require a letter of understanding, and in that piece being meaningful, and that there's some thought that if a union does not sign and return an LOU, that members of that bargaining unit would not be entitled to the incentive even if they were vaccinated. So these are all items that the commission needs to consider. And with that in mind, this is an action item, but a potential action that could occur tonight would be a direction that this matter be sent to the full commission for further consideration. So that concludes our presentation, and I also see Commissioner Ramirez's hand up.
Thank you, Misty. So we'll go to Commissioner Kane and then Commissioner Ramirez, please.
Could you go back a slide, please? It might be two, but all right. You know, one, I think giving the money is good, but the mandatory testing and the fact that we need to negotiate this with the unions, not dictate it to them. You know, I think that we should have went to the bargaining table and say, here we are, this is what we got. How can you help us or how can you not help us? Because I just don't think it's right to shove something down somebody's throat. And if our unions were outside of where they couldn't go on strike, they would. You know, I went on a 17-day strike at General Motors over some stuff that management was pulling and didn't need to be done. And remember, General Motors just went on a 70-some-odd day strike for some stuff that shouldn't have been done. And I don't think we should just dictate to our unions that they ought to have to do this. You know, I think we should have sat down with them in the first place and said, we're going to come up with a plan. And why don't you help us come up with a plan instead of saying, all right, we have a plan, whether you like it or not. And I can guarantee you the fire department has not followed the guidelines as far as when somebody got sick where they had to use their own sick leave and stuff like that. So this just adds fuel to the fire, and I don't like it.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. Just echo the words of what Commissioner Kane was just saying. But I have a couple questions. The 1 million allocation that we're making from ARPA, we're basing it off. Can you go back to that slide where it talks about the employee count? So we have an approximate amount of 2,300 employees, and we're basing the ARPA allocation off that approximation. Shouldn't we have an exact amount? What are the plans? Let's say not all 2,300 employees get the incentive. Where does the remainder of the ARPA funds go?
I think that's a good question, Commissioner. As when we did the $1 million allocation, this was considered being optimistic, knowing not everybody would take it up on the opportunity to get the incentive with the vaccine. So any funds that weren't expended for this would then come back to the Unified Government Commission to allocate in another way.
Okay, that needs to happen, but I also think it needs to be said in the resolution, explicitly saying, you know, all remaining funds that have not been used should be revert back to whatever fund that the ARPA funds currently are held in.
That's a good point, Commissioner. Thank you.
That was the one thing I had an issue about with the 1 million allocation, is just ensuring that what's left over goes back to where it originally came from. With the LOU, why weren't we given a copy of that LOU as part of our packet? If that was given to our unions to sign, why haven't we been able to review that?
Well, Commissioner, we started working on these last week and put together a draft to circulate. It was sent to the unions with the understanding that commission approval would be required before any action could be taken on it. So at this time, I would say they were more in draft form, and then they were simply kind of stating, yes, you know, we're going to do the incentive and the piece of the testing. So if it's something that the commission wishes to proceed with, then the LOUs will come in front of the commission.
Okay, no, I do think it would be a good idea for us to have a copy of that but when we meet as a commission, because I do agree that this needs to go to the full commission for a more in-depth conversation. But for us to have that conversation, I think we need to have a copy of that LOU so that we know what our unions are looking at. So those are the only two things that I had questions or comments on. I support that this go to the full commission for more in-depth conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Philbrook.
Yes, so just to carry on a little bit with the other several conversations that we've had so far, and that is, well, so I know that you sent out drafts to the bargaining units, and so all of them were the same. If they come back to us with other suggestions, are they modified, or does everybody have to sign the same thing? You understand what I'm saying, Misty?
Oh, I do, Commissioner. So everybody got a personalized draft, with their union's information on it. Some of them were, just signed off on, as is. Others have proposed drafts. Others have, expressed displeasure with the testing. So I've only seen the 3 from the trade unions that came back and were signed. And then there's been emails, back and forth about what pieces different unions liked or did not like.
So with that negotiation process, does that mean that there's a possibility that the different unions will have different agreements?
I would not recommend that.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm just asking,
there could be
that possibility.
There's always that possibility. Yes.
Okay. So having said that, what happens so I agree we need to move this forward for the full commission to have conversation about. What happens if during our conversation we decide that the bargaining units need to have more time to consider and we don't move this on through on Thursday? What happens? I mean, what is going to happen if we don't move it through?
Well, I think it would also depend on the direction of the commission if they're interested in doing this. The entire project, plan could be scrapped if that's the desire. If there was a desire to add, to take more time with it, then timelines could be adjusted depending on what portions or all of the plan the commission were interested in entertaining.
Well, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a drop dead date that would say, oh, well, we can't get our hands on the $1 million to put into this project, or things like that. That's why I'm asking Misty.
Commissioner, if I might, Alan House, Assistant County Administrator. So there's the part of the goal that here is protecting the sort of safety and health of the workforce and the public, and so trying to use the incentive to encourage vaccinations and to get our numbers up. We have, as you can see on the slide here, just under 1,300 employees who have reported that they are vaccinated. We anticipate that there is some number above that just hasn't submitted their paperwork yet, but certainly below that 2,300. So the more folks that we can get vaccinated, the safer they will be, the safer their families will be, the safer the public will be. And it will also reduce our liability or potential exposure on our health plan, since as a self-insured employer, that any costs for COVID-related health treatments are borne by the entire workforce, right? And so there's a number of reasons to want to get as many folks in the workforce vaccinated as possible. So that's sort of part of it. And I guess the other part on the testing, and this is I think part of why we wanted to bring it to standing committee and to the commission for discussion is, how does testing fit into that? There's clearly more sort of angst around testing for certain portions of the employee population. I'll note that Johnson County to the south has now for the month of September been doing testing for non-vaccinated employees on a weekly basis, and without incident. Jackson County is moving to that at the end of this month. And you've heard from the federal government that they're also kind of moving in this sort of two-pronged direction where it's you're vaccinated or you get tested on a weekly basis. We don't reside under that OSHA sort of guidance, right? So we're outside of that. And so there's sort of options that are available to us as an organization and to you all as the commissioners in terms of which direction you want to go. So we wanted to kind of get your sense of that as we go through this, but also kind of keeping in mind that really top of mind on this is how do we protect the health and safety of the workforce and the employees and then the public that they're serving.
So Alan, with that in mind, and this might be an answer from Misty because this gets into legalities. Is it possible to put through the memorandum without the ones that have not, the bargaining units that have not signed on to do this? Is it possible to put through what we can and negotiate with the bargaining units?
And I'll let Misty answer in just a second, but I mean, there's also, I think, on legal ground where we approach this in terms of dealing with the bargaining units in a cooperative manner. Like we wanted their cooperation because this is a workforce safety issue. And so, you know, I think from a purely legal perspective, there's not a requirement necessarily to go down the LOU route. So there is legal sort of standing as an employer to simply go forward with this, but and didn't want to do that, kind of approaching this in the spirit of cooperation to engage with our bargaining units to get their input on this.
So I want an answer from her, and then I'm going to answer your comment, Alan.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Misty Brown again. No, Alan is correct. We did talk about whether or not this is a mandatory condition of bargaining, and I think one union said today this isn't necessarily needing to be in an LOU. So, but back to your question of could you adopt LOUs with some of the unions and come back with the rest? Yes, you could do that. You could vote to have incentives without mandatory testing. There's a variety of options that the commission could choose to take.
Okay. And so then Alan, comment back to you. So with what you said about us wanting to be in a spirit of cooperation, my comment to that is then if we're going to be cooperating with the unions, then we don't need to just be in the spirit. We just need to do it, which means then there may be a delay. I don't know. Just, there may be a delay in how the unions come back to this. But I mean, I would like to see folks vaccinated, and I'd like to see them get the carrot instead of the stick. I would like to see us being a lot safer because for myself, I know I don't want it. And I've had to see too many patients who have lost loved ones because of some of these issues. So I just wanted to make a comment to that. So that's the direction I'm going in. Thank you, Misty. Thank you, Alan.
Commissioner Kane.
Thank you. This isn't an issue just here at the Unified Government. This is an issue across the United States. And, and for 21 years, I was on a joint program at General Motors, and I didn't make any decision without my management counterpart. And I think that we need to slow down a little bit, sit down with the bargaining unit. And I do want, let me back up a second. I want everyone to get the shots, all of them. But I think when we sit down at the table and say, all right, guys or gals, here's what we'd like to do. Not, you're going to do this whether you like it or not, and you're not going to get paid, and this is going to happen. You're going to get disciplined and everything else. Because I'm telling you, the Tuesday after we talked about this, a gentleman walked in and quit. We're already losing people leaving to go to different areas, in Johnson County and all across on Missouri, because they don't like what they're being dictated to. So it's frustrating for me working where I worked. And can be difficult at times, but I sat down with management every single day and worked out whatever issue we needed to work out. And they never rammed it down their throat except when we went on strike. So there was a reaction that our employees can't do. And some of them wish they could. So I think until we sit down with them, that this is useless.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. I see that there's two separate issues here. I'm not going to speak for the whole committee, but I'm sure that all of us support the incentive package that we're trying to provide to our employees. But it seems that the collective bargaining with the unions is what's being contentious. And I think that it needs to be two completely separate plans. And I understand that we're doing this for workplace safety, and we're trying to do what we can to ensure that we don't have an outbreak, and we ensure the health and safety of our community and our employees especially. But our unions have rights as an organized union to go about the regular and the proper channels of bargaining for this, rather than, as Commissioner Kane said, instead of shoving it to them, we need to do what's in their MOUs. And so that's why I think we need to separate these two plans into two parts so that the incentive doesn't get jeopardized by the other and vice versa. That is my suggestion that I have.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. I will say that in broad strokes, I agree with everything that's been said so far. First of all, I completely support moving this forward to the full commission for further discussion and potential resolution. I do support the incentive. I think we should encumber that money out of ARPA funds. And if we don't use it all, that's great. We have more to spend on other aspects of ARPA funding. I don't know that necessarily we need to have a November 30th deadline. I believe that was the deadline that I saw in here. We could be flexible. We could, as a commission, as a unified government, decide on a different deadline. We might extend that deadline a little bit. But I do support the incentive and encumbering that money right now for that. I will say that I don't think that we should have a fractured approach to testing. Now, frankly, myself, for a different job, I got tested weekly last year, and there's no big deal to it to me, but I understand some people have a real issue with that. But I don't think that there should be a dissimilarity if either one group is going to, either everyone's going to do it, or I would say no one's going to do it. I'd like to see it uniform across the entirety of our workforce, knowing that there is a lot of pushback, at least among some people, to the idea of a mandate to get tested. So support the incentive. I think we can be flexible on deadlines. I think that testing needs to be uniform across the entirety of our organization. And I think it should go forward to full commission for more discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments by commission or committee members or staff? Because I do see in the attendees list, there is a gentleman by the name of Mark Milstead, and on my computer, his hand goes up and down, and I think that might just be a technical issue I'm having. So if Mr. Milstead would like to speak, Madam Clerk, if you would allow him to speak, and sir, you have 2 minutes. And I believe, yes, you're now in the panelist side and you should be able to address us, Mr. Milstead.
Mr. Milstead is muted. Commissioner Bynum.
Sir, are you able to unmute and you can speak?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. I have a few concerns. I don't know how well aware you guys are of the VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. I'll just start off with the question that I already have planned here. If those who have been vaccinated can still get infected and transmit COVID, why do they then not have to be tested, even no matter the vaccine breakthrough case rate? And does it not concern you or anybody here that the VAERS system prior to this COVID-19, the research has shown that only 1% gets reported to the VAERS system. And it is currently reporting 726,963 adverse events. And of those, 15,386 deaths as reported since September 17, 2021. And are you going to be taking the liability upon for, say, deaths or the adverse effects of the vaccine if, say, someone chooses to get vaccinated?
Are those your comments, sir?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we have a commissioner or a staff person that would like to respond quickly. If not, what we can do is see if there is a motion to be made that would move this forward. I would state that I tend to agree with the position of moving this forward to the full commission for a further discussion. I tend to believe that our primary role here through all of our efforts during COVID-19 and frankly, all of our efforts prior has always been keep our public safety personnel as safe as possible, keep our entire workforce as safe as possible, serve our public, and put plans in place that allow for the continuation of government operations, especially during times like these. So with that said, is there a motion to be made at this time?
This is Commissioner Philbrook. I move to move this subject forward to the full commission for this Thursday.
Is there a
Mr.
second?
McKiernan, District 2, second.
Thank you, sir. All right. Misty Brown, I guess I'll turn to you. Is that enough direction?
Yes, it is, Commissioner. The rules of procedure does allow, a action in the form of directing a matter to the commission for further consideration.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call on this, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
No.
Ramirez,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Motion is 4-1.
And I believe that motion carries and we'll move forward to Thursday night's commission agenda. The second item on our Administration and Human Services is our blue sheet. This is item 2, the third amendment to Legends West Lawn Development Agreement. Staff has requested that this item also be fast tracked to this Thursday's full commission meeting. And I believe we have Catherine Carter, our Director of Economic Development, here to explain.
Commissioner Bynum, this is Patrick Waters, Legal
Yes.
Department. I will actually start this item.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Sure.
Thanks. So several years ago in 2018, you may recall we entered into a development agreement with the Legends for some improvements to the West Lawn area. That included a video board, lawn chairs, kind of an artificial turf area that you might be familiar with. And part of that was funded through the creation of a community improvement district out there. There was a side agreement as part of that development agreement, which provided that the developer would either pave the gravel lot north of the baseball stadium or enter into an agreed redevelopment plan with the unified government for that lot. And at the time, the deadline for that was December 31st, 2020. Of course, that date has come and passed. That gravel lot still exists and has not been paved or redeveloped. So the developer has asked for additional time. That is what we are here for tonight. The third amendment that you have before you would extend the time that developer could either pave the lot or enter into an agreed redevelopment plan to November 30th, 2022. There is a reason why we are here before this committee tonight and not economic development, and we are requesting a fast track. And I will have our outside counsel, Todd LaSala, speak a little bit about that.
Good evening, commissioners. It's Todd LaSala, and I am happy to explain sort of why we're here tonight and why we're fast tracking. Commissioners, we issued bonds, CID bonds for this project, and they are all sitting with the bond trustee. A lot of that money has already been spent. There is an amount that I believe is equal to $700,000 that is still being held by the bond trustee. The developer has done enough work and submitted draw requests for that money, but frankly, we have not dispersed that money because this paving issue has been out there. The problem is that that money can only sit there for a limited window of time. And we are now at the end of that period of time where that money can sit there. The bond documents require one of two things to happen by the end of this week. Either we disperse that money to the developer to reimburse their costs, or that money gets swept from the bond account and used to reimburse bonds. And there's no way around that. That one of those two things has to happen by the end of the week. And so what's happened here is we've been holding that money because this paving obligation hasn't been met. And the developer is now before you asking for more time. And I believe Chuck Oglesby from the developers with you tonight to talk about the various options that could happen. But we're really here for that reason. We felt very secure about that paving obligation being met while we were holding these funds hostage. But at the end of the week, we have to let them go one way or another. And so what the Third Amendment does is it creates a new contractual obligation for the developer. If they don't meet this deadline that Patrick said is going to be pushed to November 30th of 2022, if it doesn't happen by that date, instead of holding money hostage, given that we have to let it go, the developer has agreed that they would pay us liquidated damages in the amount of $500,000 if they don't meet that deadline by November of next year. So is that contractual obligation as good as holding on to the money? No, but it's a pretty good second option. It does provide us a remedy if this paving obligation isn't met some way or another by November 30th of 2022. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any questions. And if not, I would suggest we maybe hand this to Mr. Oglesby so he can speak to the paving obligations on behalf of the developer.
Yes, that'll be fine, Mr. Oglesby, if you'd like to unmute and tell us about this project.
Well, first of all, thank you to the committee and commissioners for allowing us this opportunity. I don't know, I'm not up on screen here and I'm not sure why, but we're here tonight seeking support for the Third Amendment. I thought Todd did a really nice job of explaining the situation and circumstances that we're all faced with. As you're all well aware, there are a couple of other parties, I believe, also on this call. I believe Mr. McKee and Mr. Brandmeier are here, as well representing Legend Stadium and the Monarchs. And I believe the spirit and intent of the document as it was written associates that either the developer would pave the lot or there would be a development plan in place for a redevelopment in front of the commission. Is that correct, Todd? Is that a reasonable understanding?
Yes, that is correct. It really said that the lot either gets paved or some redevelopment plan comes forward that essentially wipes out the paving application. That's correct.
Correct. And so, what I would offer up to the committee tonight is, there are a couple of options from a development perspective here. One of the things obviously is associated with, the purchase of the stadium and or the modification of the documents associated with operation of the stadium that were done with Mr. Brandmeier and his group. And the Monarchs have interest in a development plan. We've been working with them for quite some time, and I believe back when that process initially took place or was presented, what's proposed is actually in the spirit and intent of the entire redevelopment of that area. There are a couple of others that also have interest in that lot, and I can tell you that none of them want the lot paved from the perspective of the redevelopment, because it would require them basically to tear out all of the infrastructure, all of the paving, any improvements that would be done to that lot. So it's really counterproductive for the purposes of the redevelopment. And Mark's actually here. If I have the opportunity to share screen here, I can perhaps show you a few renderings of what's proposed and what we've been working on.
Sir, are you able to share, or do we need to give you? There we go.
There we go. I think you can see this.
Thank you.
Mark, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank you,
Mark?
Commission.
Yeah, would you like to speak to some of these renderings?
Yes. Yeah. So as you guys all know, I bought the Monarchs or the T-Bones in 2019, and then of course ran headlong into the pandemic. And we ran hard this year to get the stadium opened. I know some of you guys have been out to the stadium this year, seen some of the renovations that we were able to get accomplished. I think overall, just, had a great season, wound up winning a championship. Last Saturday, we wound up having our first live event out there, was a taco and tequila festival, had over 8,000 people there, and I think very successful. So I appreciate the support that the commission has given me so far on the stadium. I think we have proven to be a good bet so far. And I think it only, as we look at that gravel lot, it's kind of an unusual shaped lot. And it just makes sense if we could put together an agreement with the Legends to maybe make that space more of an entertainment district that complements the stadium, as opposed to, having, in any other type group in there. So here are a couple just renderings that we put together. We just finished the season, so we've been busy doing that. But as you guys know, back behind center field there's about 3 acres that we already are in control in, that we would like to develop, and then continue that development, into that gravel lot. I think it just makes sense. You might imagine just a structure that would overlook the field and complement, what happens on the field, but then also adds to our vision of being a 365-day destination.
Thanks, Mark. There are a couple of other renderings here that just really give you a sense of, the environment and the opportunity here to kind of create additional destination, entertainment, and sense of place. We believe there's a lot of synergy and opportunity here. To key in on something that Mark said, obviously, and I've heard throughout the earlier presentations and the issues you've been discussing, obviously, COVID has had a major impact on everybody's ability to be able to function, plan, get work done, and complete things timely. But we've continued to push forward, in good faith as much as we possibly can. And congratulations, Mark, by the way, on the championship.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any additional information that I can as it relates to this opportunity and this request. Again, I think the developer is, within the terms of the resolution that's being proposed. There's a commitment there to be able to provide a development plan to the group, or there's a liquidated damages penalty on the tail end. But to Todd's point, we're sort of at a critical impasse as it relates to the West Lawn funding. And that work has been completed or is in completion as we speak, and has been committed. And we'd like to be able to process that, get this resolution in place, and then be able to get some additional information in front of the committee and, over the long term, the commission for the full redevelopment of that area.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, this is Commissioner Bynum, and these items don't usually come to either of these committees on this night. So I do have gratitude for Commissioner McKiernan being present because he sits on our Economic Development and Finance Committee. So I've got a couple of questions, and then Commissioner Ramirez will go to you if that's all right with you. Mr. Brandmeier, congratulations to the Monarchs. What an exciting season, and the park looks fantastic and the team looks even better. So really many congratulations on an outstanding opening season for the team. Question 4, I think Mr. Waters or possibly Mr. LaSala, what we contemplate tonight is a resolution that could include or does include an option for a redevelopment, correct? Instead of a parking lot, is that right?
Absolutely, Commissioner. That is still an option, just as it has been since the beginning. And obviously probably the preferred option.
Good. So what is this penalty of the 500,000, and how does that play into a redevelopment versus a parking lot?
The penalty would be only if they did neither. If little over a year from now, if they've neither paved it nor redeveloped it, that's when the penalty would kick in.
And so do you mean completely redeveloped it, or do you mean put a plan in place that's been approved by the unified government?
I'm sorry, approved by the unified government. So it could still be in the conceptual phase, but in the planning phase.
And
as long as commission
a redevelopment plan put forward would go to its proper committee. It wouldn't come back to this committee.
Most likely. And that could also be a planning and zoning matter as well.
Or both.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum, and seconding the words of Commissioner Bynum. Congratulations, Mr. Brandmeier, and to the Monarchs. It was very exciting to see that. Majority of my comments were going to be what Commissioner Bynum was talking about, because I was kind of confused as well of what was happening tonight and what was being asked. But so thank you for that, Mr. Waters, for the clarification. So now that I have a better understanding, the only question I had was based off the original parking lot condition, and I can sort of probably get an understanding of why it didn't happen, but I would like to know as to why that parking lot condition wasn't met in the original development agreement.
Well, I don't think the original development agreement, now you're talking about the 2002 agreement? Or are you talking about the West Lawn CID agreement?
The West Lawn CID agreement.
Right. So, obviously it was contemplated within the terms of the agreement. And as I said before, that happened back in 2018, and we all know what's happened for the last, 2-year period. In addition to that, I'll tell you within that same sort of window of time is when Mr. Brandmeier's group started all of this, and we began conversations with them as well as other parties for redevelopment. So the plan all along had been to redevelop that lot. Obviously, we don't believe it's the highest and best use to pave it, for purposes of additional parking when there's the opportunity to continue development, entertainment districts, and other items that create additional synergy within Village West. And so as we sort of moved down that road and we moved into what I'll call the COVID era, that basically was delayed substantially. All of the, tenants, merchants, typical development partners that we would be working with, they sort of went dead stop as we moved through the COVID era. Coming back out of this, and during that period of time, with Mr. Brandmeier's acquisition of the T-Bones Group, and as that relationship continued to develop, we saw this opportunity in front of us, and we believe it's the appropriate path. So that's the reason for the delay. Primarily was finding the option that's appropriate other than paving. And I believe that's contemplated within the terms of the document, the original document.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that explanation. That I have a better understanding of everything of what is being asked of us tonight. I think if you and Mr. Brandmeier and all of those who are involved can find a good, suitable option for it other than a parking lot, I say go for it. Because, Mr. Brandmeier, you have changed that place where the stadium is now. I remember when I first came on, this is one of the biggest things that was coming through, and you were getting hit down and down because of COVID. You have come out on top. So I thank you for all that you've done for our community and the amenity that you've brought to our community. I thank you for that. And I hope and look forward to see what else you can develop in that area.
Well, thank you very much. And it's largely due to the partnership that we've developed. So I appreciate this board and the mayor and the commissioner for your support through this whole journey.
Thank you very much, Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. First of all, Mr. Oglesby, I want to say, I think that the West Lawn development within the perimeter of the Legends is magnificent. I've been out there on several weekend afternoons when it is just packed with people having fun, enjoying the shopping. So job well done on that.
Thank you.
Having said that, I've always been disappointed that I've never liked that gravel lot. I was always wondering why it was not completed at the same time as West Lawn. But now that there is an opportunity for something other than a parking lot there, I'm definitely in support of this extension so that we can potentially get a development agreement for something better than a parking lot on that little gravel spot. So great job on West Lawn. Great job over at Legends Field with Mr. Brandmeier and his group. And I guess my only question would be, do we have a reasonable expectation that by the deadline articulated in this third amendment, November 30th, 2022, do we have a reasonable expectation that we could have a development agreement in place that would forego the need to pay any sort of penalty?
Well, that would definitely be our hope, and that's our expectation. I think the short answer is yes. Obviously, we can't predict what's going to happen as it relates to items that are out of our control, i.e. the COVID that we've just gone through, the Delta variants that we're dealing with today, and any potential things that may inhibit or hinder the process. That being said, we feel very strongly that we are on the right path and we're a ways down the road here, and being able to create something that we can present. So the hope, the plan is yes.
Okay, so my thought process is this: if it's not reasonable that we could come up with something by November of 2022. If we end up just paving, or if you end up paying the penalty in November of 2022, we'll probably end up just paving that lot. And if we're going to wait a year and a half to do it, we might as well do it now. So I hope that we do get a development agreement in there so that we have something productive before this deadline comes. I have one other question for Mr. LaSala, I guess it would be. So what we're doing with this third agreement is we're allowing the rest of the CID funds that were designated for West Lawn to be released. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And those would reimburse the expenses for creating the West Lawn area.
Also correct.
Do any of the funds that are about to be released, or are any of the funds that are about to be released designated for the paving of this lot?
No.
In that case, thank you so very much. Thanks, Commissioner Bynum. That's all the questions I have.
Commissioner Bynum, I have a question.
Yes.
Todd, I was reading over on, well, page 3, and actually it's under Z, 1Z, and it says, as described in section 9.4 of the agreement. And what is section 9.4 of the agreement?
Yeah, that's about a default interest rate. It is in the original CID agreement, and it essentially says that if for some reason neither of these things happen, and we get to November of 22, neither of those things have happened, they owe us the $500,000. We're essentially saying, for every day that you don't pay, you owe interest on that money at the rate of interest articulated in the original development agreement.
Thank you. I like to know what those sections are in there. Thank you so much. And I agree with Brian. $500,000 seems like a lot to me. It may not to some people, but it sure does to me. And and so I sure don't want to have to pay somebody to go after the $500,000, but it's a lot cheaper to pay, I don't know, a lawyer to go after that $500,000 if we have to, than not to put that in this contract. I'm sorry that we have had to get to this point where we've had to wait to get something accomplished, but because of Mr. Brandmeier luckily falling into our laps, thank you so much, that we have the possibility of really doing great things in there. And so, Mr. Oglesby, I hope that you and Mr. Brandmeier can come to an agreement so we can see something happening there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Catherine Carter, do you have any comments you'd like to share with us?
No, thank you. I think Patrick and Todd have covered everything.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Is there anyone, or I should say, Madam Clerk, is there any comments received from the public on the item?
No public comments are received.
Anyone else with their hand up in our attendees that wishes to speak?
There are no hands raised.
All right. Is there a motion to be made from this committee?
Commissioner Philbrook, move to move forward, literally. Move to move.
Kiernan, second, and I'll clarify that we are approving as submitted and fast tracking to the meeting of the 30th.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second on the item. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. And that motion carries. Thank you all, gentlemen, for the presentations. Really appreciate that. That is the last item on our agenda. With that, we have concluded our meeting and we are adjourned. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.